Let's talk about one of the most common ways in which entrepreneurs self-sabotage by spreading themselves too thinly. If you're an entrepreneur, whether you're new to this or whether you've been at it for a long time, it's very likely that you're doing this in some form and you're really making things way too difficult for yourself as a result. Hello, I'm Shane from Active Growth, and the thing I'm talking about is related to being multi-passionate, and it's related to being an entrepreneur in the first place, actually, right? As an entrepreneur, you have this quality of being enthusiastic about new things, about seeing opportunities, about seeing ideas and wanting to go and create something. That's what makes you an entrepreneur, and that's great. You probably also have some kind of unreasonable optimism because you can look at something where it's like, you know what, I'm going to build something out of nothing and I'm going to make money doing it. I'm going to build this business out of thin air. Where a lot of people are like, well, that's never going to happen. This is way too difficult. But you're like, yeah, let's do it, right? So you have like this enthusiasm and this optimism and this drive to create things, which is great. You can't really be an entrepreneur in the first place without some of these elements. However, it's also a problem. This same thing also becomes a huge problem when this happens more than once. I mean, you see one opportunity, you see one business idea, and you're like, yes, let's go after this. And you see another thing and you're like, let's also go after this, right? And this becomes a huge problem. The problem is this. We all know that it takes effort, it takes a lot of time and resource to get a business off the ground. And we think as entrepreneurs, kind of the idiot thing we tell ourselves is that I'm going to give 100% on this project, but then another project comes along that's also attractive. And we're like, well, I'm going to give 100% on that one too. And it's like, how is this going to happen, right? Do you suddenly have like 48-hour days? You simply cannot give 100% on more than one thing. And there's another, that's kind of the self-delusion. The self-delusion is that we think, oh, I'll just take on more, I'll just do more, right? Even though we're already super busy, we're already working super hard on this one business, we're like, well, I'm going to start another website, I'm going to start another thing, and I'm just going to do more work. But we don't look at our day and look at, well, where is this more going to come from, right? I don't have any free hours here. I'm not wasting my time. I'm already not sleeping enough. Where the hell is more going to come from? But it gets even worse than that, because in my experience, there's a factor at play here, which is like the opposite of, sometimes things come together and it becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Well, when you spread yourself between multiple projects, the opposite of that happens. So imagine that you're giving 100% effort on one business. And let's say the goal is to get to $100,000 a year, right? $100,000 a year. Let's say if you give 100% of your effort, you reach that in 2 years. Now, if you spread yourself between two different projects, then you would think that, obviously you can't give 200%, right? But you would think that, well, I can do 50-50, right? 50% here, 50% there. And how long is it going to take me to reach a total of 100K a year with these two businesses? Well, it's the same amount of effort, right? Just spread on two businesses, so it's still going to take 2 years, right? Maybe it's taking 2 years to get business 1 to 50 and business 2 to 50K, still a total of 100K of nothing lost, right? But in reality, in my experience, it's not going to take you 2 years. It's going to take you like 3 or 4 years. So it's almost like by spreading yourself between two projects, it's no longer 50% here and 50% here. It's more like 30% here and 30% here and 40% is just lost, unrecoverable. And it gets worse as you add more projects and more businesses, right? If you do like 3 different things, it's going to take you 5 years. If you do 4 different things, it's probably never going to happen because there's a huge cost to spreading yourself out too thinly among multiple projects. There's a huge cost in having to kind of switch gears between them. And there's a huge cost in, one of the things is the example of, or the idea of escape velocity, right? You need like this amount of power to get something going. And after that, once it's cruising, it's much easier to keep it going. And if you spread yourself between too many different things, you're just never going to be able to get these things to escape velocity. So you can just get entirely stuck. Maybe you're thinking, hold on, Shane, what about, people like Elon Musk or Richard Branson who run like half a dozen businesses or more? How does that work? Isn't that the opposite of what you're saying? I think it's important to keep in mind here that, for example, Elon Musk, he was doing only PayPal until he made a few $100 million. And then once you have a few $100 million and a lot of entrepreneurial experience, then yes, you can expand. And the same for Richard Branson, right? He started out with a mail order business, and then stores, and only once he made a lot of money did he start branching out into more stuff. So I think we shouldn't confuse what a super successful entrepreneur with a massive war chest can do with what we can do as small-scale entrepreneurs. And again, this idea of escape velocity comes in, because if you've built up a business and it's gotten to the point where it has achieved escape velocity and it's cruising, then you're in a position where you can say, okay, I'm going to hand off some of my responsibilities here and I'm going to start something new. That is a much more realistic outcome. But the problem I see, the mistake I see entrepreneurs make, is that they are, thinking about the second product and the third website and, oh, that book, when their first business isn't even making a lot of money yet, when their first business isn't really a success yet. That is a huge problem. So with that said, here's my specific advice about what to do about this if you see that you have this problem. The first is that you should no longer tolerate your own self-delusion, right? Whenever you see an interesting new opportunity and you start telling yourself like, yeah, I can just take on more, I can do more, that you don't buy into that. That's totally delusional, right? You have to think about, what am I spending my day doing right now? And what am I going to sacrifice, right? What am I going to sacrifice to do more? I can't just add more. The second thing is, I recommend that you set yourself clear milestones. And you can do that by adding a results milestone and a no results milestone. So let's say I'm trying to get a new online course business off the ground. And I'm working on my product and on promotion and so on and so forth. I can say, look, I'm going to work on this and only this until this business makes, let's say, 100K a year. And once it makes 100K a year, there's some things I can hand off, or maybe I can automate some aspects, and I'll free up a bunch of hours in my day, and I can then use those hours to do something else. But not until I hit that milestone, right? I'm not going to cripple myself halfway there, and then the business fizzles out, and I'm back to square one, right? I'm going to reach this milestone before I go do anything else. And you can also do a no results milestone, because especially if I'm doing a kind of an experimental business where I'm really trying something new and it's not certain if it's going to work, I don't want to be in a position where I'm just kind of churning away at something that's never going to succeed for too long. So I can say, look, I'm going to work on this and nothing else for 1 year. And if I create my course, I do all my outreach, I do all my promotions, I've reached out to everyone in my niche, I've done everything I can for a whole year, and this thing still doesn't produce decent results, then I'm going to abandon it and I'm going to do something new. And this way, by having a results milestone and a no results milestone, you force yourself to basically do a concentrated effort on one thing, and you only move on when you have like a good reason, not just because an attractive new thing came along, but it's like you have a good reason, right? It's either ready to move on, or you're like, okay, I've done enough, this is not going to work, I'm going to do something new. I know that this is not easy to do, and I struggle with this as well a lot. Especially when I was starting out, I was always doing too much, but doing too much, as I've talked about in previous videos, it's something I really, really struggle with. But I also practice this. It's difficult, and I challenge you to do this, and I also practice this. I mean, I have a long list of things that I want to do. I have a strong desire to start new businesses, and I'm just not doing them because I haven't reached my milestones yet. So there you go. If you take this challenge, it will make you a more effective entrepreneur. So let me know what your thoughts on this are, and share your stories if you've struggled with this problem as well. Leave a comment below.